This is Mac OS Ken.
Small but important OS updates. Trump walks back Apple affecting tariffs, and a big week for Apple Watch activity challenges. Where have I been? Where have you been? It is Monday, the 21st of April, 2025. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from Mac OS Ken, brought to you by yours truly and supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/MacOSCan. We will start with those OS updates I mentioned. Last Wednesday, the 16th of April, Mac Rumors was littered with tales of operating system updates from Apple. Small, bug-fixing updates they were said to be. Among them were iOS and iPadOS 18.4.1, macOS Sequoia 15.4.1, tvOS 18.4.1, and visionOS 2.4.1. The iOS update addressed a problem some have been talking about for a bit. Remember how iOS 18.4 was borking wireless CarPlay across a range of autos? Another piece from Mac Rumors says last week's 18.4.1 update fixes that issue. That said, the real reason to download the iOS update is tied to security. A piece from TechCrunch says 18.4.1 addresses two zero-day vulnerabilities believed to have been under active exploit. For both issues, Apple's Security Updates page says the company is aware of a report that this issue may have been exploited in an extremely sophisticated attack against specific targeted individuals on iOS. If you're wondering how sophisticated extremely sophisticated is, TechCrunch says Apple credited one of the finds to Google's Threat Analysis Group, a group that investigates government-backed cyber attacks. The piece says that may indicate that the attacks targeting Apple customers were launched or coordinated by a nation-state or government agency. With so much code shared across Apple's operating systems, the same exploit was found and plugged in all of last week's releases. Even if you are not a likely target of such attacks, it's probably best to run the updates. So about a day after my week off began, Apple and other electronics manufacturers got something of a reprieve from the astronomical tariffs on Chinese imports. Back on the 12th of April, Mac Rumors ran a piece that had the U.S. Customs and Border Protection Agency sharing a long list of products excluded from the levies. According to the report, iPhones, Macs, iPads, Apple Watch, and other Apple devices will not be subject to the 125% tariffs that have been put in place on imported Chinese goods, nor will Apple have to pay the 10% reciprocal tariffs that are in place for goods from other countries. How'd that happen? Word is Apple CEO Tim Cook had a word with the White House. Apple Insider cites a report from the Washington Post. That report had Cook talking to Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick and other White House officials earlier in April about the potential impact of tariffs on iPhone prices. Then there was the talk in which Cook did not participate, basically keeping his mouth shut publicly when it came to the tariffs and the damage they might do. Sounds like secret source stuff, though it is secret source stuff seemingly confirmed by Trump. Another piece from Apple Insider last week says the president effectively confirmed that the exemption came after a conversation with Cook. Quoting Trump, "Look, I'm a very flexible person. I don't change my mind, but I'm flexible, and you have to be. You just can't have a wall and you'll only go. Sometimes you have to go around it, under it, or above it. There'll be maybe things coming up. I speak to Tim Cook. I helped Tim Cook recently," said Trump, "and that whole business. I don't want to hurt anybody." As for that whole business, and that seems to be the case. While video game consoles get no relief, the Mac Rumors piece I mentioned earlier says computer components such as GPUs from NVIDIA, semiconductors and the equipment used to make them, SSDs, displays, mini TVs, and other devices are exempt from the tariff turmoil. For now. Quoting one of the Apple Insider pieces, the world reaction was that Trump had backed down from his insistence that there would be no exemption, so naturally there was then pushback from the White House. By Sunday, the 13th of April, Trump was denying that there had been any exemption and reframed it as changing from one type of tariff to another. That takes us to a Mac Rumors piece from 1 week ago today that had the president hitting his own personal hell site to say, "Nuh-uh." Trump is said to have indicated that there was no tariff exception. Apple and other tech companies are just moving to a different tariff bucket, with the 20% fentanyl tariff still in place and additional tariffs coming. Dropped, delayed, whatever the case, Apple analysts breathed sighs of relief in the change's wake. Early last week, Apple 3.0 ran reaction notes on the news. From UBS analyst David Vogt, this 12th hour change provides relief for Apple and others that would have faced significant economic headwinds that in the case of Apple, we estimate could have reduced its earnings power by 30%, given its supply chain is heavily reliant on China despite diversification efforts over the past decade. Vogt has a neutral rating on Apple shares and a price target of $236. Wedbush analyst Daniel Ives is still bullish on Apple long-term, though he and his see Apple revenue this year and next year falling 2% in a best-case scenario and as much as 20% in a worst-case disaster scenario. A drop of about 10% is seen as most likely based on demand destruction and cost increases. He's got an outperform rating on Apple shares and a price target of $250. While Evercore analyst Amit Daryanani was happy about an anticipated stock rally based on the news, uncertainty around the future of U.S. trade policy will remain a narrative overhang and key risk to monitor in his estimation. He's got an outperform rating on Apple shares and a price target of $275. I only spotted 2 moves on Apple from analysts after last week's news. JP Morgan analyst Samik Chatterjee noted the big relief for Apple in the tariff change. That said, he and his expect several concerns to remain from the developments over the last, 3 weeks now, and limit investors from immediately turning to any bull case. While he maintains an overweight rating on Apple shares, the tariff turmoil has taken its toll. He's lowered his price target on Apple shares from $270 to $245. And lastly, KeyBank analyst Brendan Nispel did something stunning. He upgraded his firm's rating on the Cupertino Company's stock. While Trump says tariffs are still coming for Apple and its ilk, Nispel seems to think not. With the worst-case scenario of continuing tit-for-tat trade war escalation likely no longer in play and the exception on smartphones from tariffs, he and his don't think things will be as bad as they had feared. That was enough to move Apple shares from underweight to sector weight in his estimation. That said, he still has no price target set on the company's stock. We'll wrap the day with 2 Apple Watch activity challenges, both happening in the next 72 hours. First, tomorrow is Earth Day, when we'll party like it's your Earth Day and you know the rest. As it's wont to do, Apple's marking the event by telling you to go outside and play. Actually, you don't have to go outside. A piece from Mac Rumors says the company's doing the usual thing, giving people virtual medallions and animated stickers for completing a workout of a certain length. Apple said to be prompting with the message, on the 22nd of April, celebrate Earth Day and win this award with any workout of 30 minutes or more. Try to get outside for it. Makes sense since it's Earth Day, when we'll party like it's your Earth Day and you know the rest. Activity isn't the only way Apple's marking Earth Day. A piece from 9 to 5 Mac says the Cupertino Company has launched a special 10% discount offer on various products when you bring in old tech to be recycled. Accessories up for the discount include power adapters, AirPods, AirTags, Apple Pencil, Apple TV, chargers, cases, and more. The piece indicates that those do need to be Apple-branded accessories, not just things sold by Apple. The discount's available when you bring in a range of electronics to be recycled, including computers, displays, hard drives, headphones, printers, smartphones, speakers, and that list does go on. While Apple does list some of its own hardware specifically, AirPods, Apple TV, HomePod, and iPod, for example, you would seriously recycle an iPod at this point? Anyway, the stuff being recycled does not have to be Apple branded. Does have to happen at a physical Apple store though, since, as 9to5Mac points out, you need to physically bring in the tech you're recycling and make your new purchase at the same time. The discount offer started last week. It ends on the 16th of May. More info is available on Apple's site. And finally today, word on an Apple Watch activity challenge with something no other has ever had before. An actual physical thing for completion. Another piece from Mac Rumors says the Cupertino company is celebrating 10 years of Apple Watch and activity rings with Global Close Your Rings Day. The original Apple Watch launched on the 24th of April 2015, according to Mac Rumors, and activity rings were there on day one. To mark the occasion, Apple has participants getting the usual virtual medallion and 10 animated stickers for closing all 3 rings on Thursday, the 24th of April. In addition, Apple's press release on the event says to celebrate Global Close Your Rings Day, customers can obtain a special pin inspired by the award. Customers can pick up a pin at Apple Store locations worldwide starting on the 24th of April while supplies last. Thursday tends to be my busiest day. I guess this Thursday is going to be a bit busier. macOS Ken, brought to you by me and supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macosken. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media, online at backbeatmedia.com. You can reach me a couple of ways. Info at macosken.com or call 716-780-4080. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.
Ciao.